live streamed on. There it is. This meeting is being live streamed.
Here we go. There
By
we go.
saying you consent, I consent
Perfect.
verbally to this thing.
Hey, meeting is now streaming live on YouTube.
Action faces, everyone. Action faces. Okay. Edit video. So I'll just transfer the description over. For those of you tuning in now, hello. Kyle Abbott, Eduardo to some, Big K to others. We're just transferring. We had a little snafu with the YouTube to Zoom thing, other way around. So we're just switching over to another YouTube video thing, which is what you're currently watching. And I will send this link. I don't think anyone's tuned in yet. Let's see, in the Zoom, I will send everybody the link to this new thing right here. And then we can share that with our friends.
That's in the chat. There's the thing. Chat link. Copy chat link.
Hello, faces. We had to move to another video thing.
I choose copy chat link.
Live stream is here.
Excuse me.
Ways of harmony live stream happening now.
Okay, I just put it on Facebook. Now there is diddly do. All right.
Two are watching now. Hello, everybody. Maybe that's me, and maybe that's another person on this Zoom thing.
I'm seeing this on Zoom. Is there a way to see it on YouTube as well?
Yes. Do you see in the meeting chat I put a link there?
In the meeting chat, okay.
Yeah.
Just posted
It'll
it.
be a little tricky to watch at the same time because there's a 20-second delay or so
Ooh.
ish, but it's a good concentration challenge.
I'm
Every drummer
sorry,
loves 20-second length. Yeah.
Kyle.
Yes.
Could I ask you to send the
It'll be a little tricky
in
to
some other fashion?
watch at the same time because there's a 20-second delay or so. Sorry, what'd you say?
Could I get you to send the YouTube link by some other fashion than the Zoom chat? I don't
Okay,
seem to be able to copy it on my phone.
Okay, sure.
Sorry.
No. I'll send it to
Email or
I-
Facebook.
I just sent it to your Facebook, Joel.
Domo, thank you so much.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay, score.
Okay, then we could let me know when we're all ready because I have something to say to everyone, which is written up.
We're all getting bonuses.
Yes. Bonus content. Do my little dance here,
Go for it.
right here. So, Edwin and Douglas and Joel know very well how skilled I am on a hot mic. And because of that, I've written up the introduction for when we're ready. Folks, I see them. Folks are here watching. Uh-oh, two, we lost them. Sorry, folks. Well, here we are. Okay. Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Quick note, Jesse could not make it.
Oh man.
Well, thanks, or she has to. She wishes everybody the best and hopes next time to be here. She'll watch this later.
All right.
She'll be skipping around past this part. Okay, so greetings, everyone. Welcome out there, in here and out there. Who's here? Nobody. I didn't say that. Don't listen. I'm Kyle Abbott here with the Waves of Harmony project. Here, what is that? We'll say more about it. But right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 members of this in its entirety, 33 plus member ensemble. We have the tutist himself, one of the best, I like to think, best players in the world for shakuhachi, Sean Renzo Hedge, coming all the way from Japan, Nara, Japan, which had my sound effects buttons for applause and such. In Los Angeles, multi-instrumentalist, best known on this project and otherwise for the glass harp, bajas, koto, other instruments. Douglas Lee. Yay. And speaking of just phenomenal phenoms, guitarist extraordinaire and on the harmonium, banjo, shamisen, and other instruments, but especially known on this project for guitar and harmonium, Edwin Ito from Los Angeles too. Staple musician in this project and one of the co-producers as well. And holding it all together, you never miss them till they're gone, at least in the bluegrass world. Bassist. We have, and not just bluegrass, but Steve is incredible. I mean,
The hack of all trades.
no, I mean,
shoot.
he's done so much more than, he's done so much more than just He's made an entire album of solo bass compositions and such. He's taken it above and beyond what most have. And how long have we known each other?
It's been a long time. I think you've known Kathy, my wife, longer than me, maybe too. You guys used to jam together.
Yeah,
So
she used to come to our house when I was like 8 years old or so.
Those legendary jams. Yeah, it's been decades, man.
It's been a long time.
It should be mentioned too, Kyle, that Steve is an incredible multi-instrumentalist. He doubles on so many instruments. So,
oh yes,
from brass to what reeds to whatever. Yeah,
that I didn't know. I thought it was bass.
Bass,
Well, good.
strings, and yeah, enough to teach and get by. I can play Frere Jacques on every wind instrument.
Yeah.
Could have brought you in on so much more than just bass.
I was just thinking of taking Frere Jacques lessons, so that's great to know.
Oh, but thank you so much, you guys. They're too nice.
Oh, and it's well deserved too. All hailing from Monterey, California, just down the road, Steve Uccello. Next up, someone who's known me longer than Steve's wife, someone who's known me since before I was in diapers, and has known my mom since she was in her 20s,
Yeah.
taking drum lessons here in Santa Cruz. A legend, truly a legend among us, a staple of Santa Cruz, the Santa Cruz music scene, percussionist extraordinary in every flavor you could imagine. Truly, the developer, the founder of the live looping thing, for lack of a better word, the world of live looping, the movement, yes.
Yeah.
And so off the top of my head, so much more, but and developer of a way of learning rhythms via an alphabetical categorical approach thing. Apologies, I didn't write this up. anywho, coming from even closer, literally down the road, Rick Walker. Oh,
Rick.
good friends. And the connection with shamisen is Kevin Metz, Masahiro Nita, Mike Penny, when they were all here in Santa Cruz. Well, actually, Rick, we could get into that story later. That would be great.
Sure.
But the connections abound. And lastly, not including myself, I know him. We all know him. We all love him. I do. The main, let's see, founder of We Folk Studios, another multi-instrumentalist, everything from a delightful shinobue, tin whistle, bazuki, and so much more, singer-songwriter, and producer, co-producer here on this Waves of Harmony projects, and the engineer, mixing master of all these songs too. And so much more. Joel Mankey, son of Earl Mankey, and mom.
Waves of Harmony.
Oh, nice. That's the
Nice.
This is an H.
I thought you were going to give us introductions like, Joel Mankey, son of Mr. Mankey, hail from land of this, and like land of slasher of sound bites, this sort of
That's
thing.
good. We should definitely come up with those.
They're prepared in advance, like definitely. And we can use that for the concerts.
You heard it here first,
Absolutely.
ladies and gentlemen. This is where our nicknames were workshopped.
So, and then who's going to translate that in Japanese? You want me to do that?
Sean, yes, please. And I'm Kyle Abbott, son of Dad.
Son of Dad.
So what is this Waves of Harmony project, you say? In short, it all started with just a few rough mixed things I've done here in the studio, just some rough things on my hard drive. During the pandemic 2020, Joel was, it's a hard time being a full-time musician in the lockdowns. So I thought, I have these songs that really need to be mixed. I thought, hey, Joel, how about I hire you to kind of mix these. And that was kind of the first start of any real collaboration I've done. I've had some guest people do work, but
Wasn't the
I
first
didn't
one-
rehearse this. Huh?
Wasn't the first one Agree?
Yes, right. That was also 2020. It was right after my cancer thing.
That was the first
Yes.
mixing.
That was the first mixing thing.
It's not on the Waves of Harmony project though. It's the only one that hasn't made it
Yeah, right. We'll have to see about that.
yet. For those of you, has that been released?
Yeah, it was released.
Oh yeah, okay. Well then it's out there. You also can Google what the heck we're talking about and listen.
Agree. Written by Kevin Metz. Explicit lyrics.
Yes,
Um,
irreverent, explicit lyrics.
So I guess what's the best way to put this?
Enough said.
In the beginning, I made a few albums, and it was mostly just me playing songs I loved, but being a bit of a thrifty fellow, I just in lieu of asking people to join me on it, I just played as much as I could by myself, half-assed or otherwise. And for this in 2020, these songs I gave to Joel to mix, I was starting to meet other, great musicians. Initially, Sean and Edwin. Edwin just got a shamisen, and he told me he was a guitarist. And I've said this a couple of times, but I'll say it again that at the time, of course, I do a little Facebook check to see who people are, and I saw a professional shot of him like on stage in his world music band, and he had this incredible shirt. A shirt that struck me as this guy
Yes, I
knows
know
how
he
to
was
play
good
guitar.
people.
Yeah, and it's true. It is true. So that there's this song "Passing Strange," which we'll all hear at some point. which is very worldy, throat singing, egil, floaty, rubato thing. I thought this would be great to have some nice guitar playing. I had some stuff on there myself. So I asked Edwin, any chance you'd like to collaborate, add a little guitar, which he gratefully agreed. Thankfully he agreed. And we just had a little deal of exchanging guitar tracks for shamisen lessons. And when he played, like just from the very first notes, the first second of I just knew this was such a good idea. And that really kind of sparked a new realization of how much, individual people bring their own personality, their own emotion into their instrument. The main gripe I had with doing everything myself is that I sounded the same. I could hear myself in all the instruments, doing the same kind of lick, doing the same way of bouncing across notes, which it wasn't all that satisfying. Having Edwin in there is like, here's another spirit, here's another voice. From there, ask Sean to add some shakuhachi. And that really cemented that feeling of, okay, more people who are one with their instrument, who are so in tune with their instrument. They're not just bringing sound, they're bringing their emotion, their personality into this soundscape. And that's
you
really...
told me you rolled a 20 twice in a row.
In D&D?
Well, not in life.
Like,
Like the first guy I asked, Edwin, was that good. And the second guy I just happened to ask was Sean, that good.
well, it wasn't, I would say, Edwin, it was more of luck, but I wouldn't say it was luck because I still saw that shirt. Sean, he visited here at least a year earlier, at the beginning of 2020.
Oh, so you guys had met
Yeah.
before. Okay.
Yeah, we hung out in the beginning or end of January, early February, and we did a bunch of collaborations together and had good
Oh,
steak
okay.
and whiskey.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Right on.
And like from there, it was clear, like his tone, I could a tone that could be counted on, depended on. Rick, you're muted. If you're talking to me, us. Oh, maybe not.
I'm wearing an Einstürzende Neubauten industrial shirt. Can I continue to be in this discussion? Okay.
Oh, yes.
You're allowed, bro. I think it's fine.
100%.
We need Waves of Harmony merch.
Yeah, that's at some point.
So
Well,
one thing, Kyle, if you could, I don't know if it's possible, but they have like the group setting where we can see everybody at the same time. Because right now,
yeah,
on the
that would be
YouTube,
great.
I love
Here we
your
go.
face. It looks great, but
No. I
wanna-
prefer this. I prefer this.
Thing.
And you can control that on your own Zoom. You can see the gallery or just who's speaking.
Yeah, I'm on.
Upper
Trying to dig that
right-hand
right
corner, I believe. There's a view button.
Mm.
This should I would hope that on the YouTube, it would also switch to gallery view if I switch to gallery view.
it did. I just checked it, so we're good.
Okay. Well, then this is really delayed, at least on my end.
Yeah,
Excellent.
It normally is.
Okay. So where were we? Life. Yeah. So Sean and Edwin were really the first ones. Then seeing how this was possible, then it really opened up, like, thinking, so I know who I would kind of consider one with their instrument, or just have, it's not even that, something you really feel, just the vibe of the person.
Just pick all the best people.
I just picked all the best people. And then jump ahead 2 years later or so, we're up to 40 songs. and 33 artists. Some, I would say, I will have to say, some weren't quite that handpicked in that way, like Tom Delaney, the uilleann pipist. There's only so many pipers in the world. So him, it was just like, I just put out on Facebook, the uilleann pipe Facebook group, hey, anybody want to play on a world music track? And he raised his hand. And it also just so happened that he had a good feeling for the stuff.
And you didn't find any pictures of him on the internet with Hawaiian shirts or anything else?
No, not at all. No, he's kind of a t-shirt guy. No, he has a good beard. Anywho, yeah. So it's between a good sense and then also luck for some folks. Okay, so Sean, does that explain the project? Is there anything else?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think everybody should be, any of my people who are watching should be on board now.
Okay. And if anyone doesn't, oh, hello, mother. If anyone who doesn't, yes, please ask us. I don't. Okay.
Chat, I'm not.
It's really hard to look at the YouTube and talk at the same time. Okay,
Yeah,
so
don't try to do that. You're gonna lose your brain.
yeah, and that's already not the first of my life.
That's okay.
Okay.
I can manage questions and stuff like that, and I also have it up in multiple places, so I can watch
sweet.
it for you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so here's some pre-written stuff, so this will be smooth, I think. One thing to note, Waves of Harmony would love your support. Bringing 33 artists in on a 40-track project was not cheap. And so if you love musical projects like this, I would like to see you prove it by checking out the GoFundMe link on the top line of the description. Anything helps, and we very much appreciate it. Thank you. But that's not why you called. There's one thing people should note before we begin, too late. But I think this is the most interesting part of the project. Unlike other studio projects where you have a producer that has the album all mapped out, charts made for everyone, like play what's exactly on this page. Exactly. This project really had no plan, as I kind of just said. It was very grassroots sort of thing. It started out with a handful of unfinished songs, which I just said. The only real ask was collaborators. The only real ask of collaborators was to play just what feels good to you. And the result was seriously richer than anything pre-written. Seriously, for some folks, like especially Edwin, I kind of had an idea of what the guitar might sound like, or what Sean's toots would be, and on and on. But every time I was always pleasantly surprised with how different it was from what I was imagining, and also how much richer, more expressive it all was, because the individual is really in tune with their instrument. So yeah, they're going to know the breadth of what they can bring more than me, who just has just the general tones. Okay. Of course, sometimes I suggested little changes of feeling here and there. It wasn't that completely like anything goes right into the pot. But all in all, having that trust of knowing everyone could feel and match the emotion of the initial rough mix, sometimes just me doing a little string tickles. Sometimes for Edwin, I would just give him an a cappella scratch track, and he weaved an entire melodic structure on that, chording and everything. Having that trust that people had that sensitivity and emotion for it, it allowed the album to blossom into the current 40-song project. So I thought this would be a good jumping off point. Got to stop talking at some point. Basing what you play on the song solely on the emotional vibe you feel from the song, whether it be the lyrics, chord structure, etc., is a very personal experience. The reason why this could work is that everyone had a sensitivity to be aware of what would fit well with both the song's feeling and the feelings of the instruments of the neighboring artists, without even being in the same room with them, and often not even knowing each other beforehand. Just like here, in this Zoom right here, this is the first meeting for some of these people. This requires an awareness, which we all have. And with that, I know we have a wide range of personalities here. So it would be very interesting to hear if our approach to this differed. Oh, that is my introduction. And where someone can jump off from. Anyone?
I got something. It caused
Joel.
me
Yes.
no end of short huffs along the way. Where, what did you say? I thought it was so cute just now that you said it allowed the album to blossom. And my experience of the trajectory was, here's a couple of songs, maybe we'll do a thing. Hey, what if we do an album? Okay, what if we do 4 albums? It was not very blossomy. It was a little bit more like, were we doing this? I guess we're doing this. Steamroller, there's more tracks. There's more tracks. Here's more tracks by this guy. What about this song? There's more tracks by this guy. Ah, cool. Let's mix it. Oh, wait, here's more tracks by this guy. And it was just that. Once it like got to that pace, I was like, oh, I guess this is what's happening. Dang.
Well, you know, Joel, in biology, they call it a swarm.
Yes, that's a very appropriate word for that. I could see why. Realized after a while that like, oh, no, nobody's arrives at this same level of stress. You can chill. Everyone else isn't like, who's gonna play after me? And then I'm like, oh, no one's really going like, how is this? What's the big final picture? It's more just like literally letting it do its thing. By being like, I guess he goes next. Oh, she was gonna do something. Oh, she's unavailable now. Well, she did a thing. And now they're gonna do something different than they might have otherwise. Because that, like, it really, I was surprised at how much it simplified the process of arranging and record production, and also how regularly it worked out to such positive effect. Like, if you had asked me before this project, is doing things that way going to work out? I would say something like, to the extent that you exercise control over what comes in, then yeah, it could. But now I'm just like, yeah, that'll just work out. It'll be fine. Just call the right few people. Everything will be great. The right 50 people, maybe. It worked out great. And I no longer have any level of stress about operating this way with y'all. I don't know if any of that got back to you during the process, but it was a fun journey for me.
Yeah, no, and I can attest to that. You know, it was all kind of going on a gut feeling of like, this is a great opportunity. We've got all these people here who, you know, really gel well together, at least musically, that we should take this opportunity and, oh, here's a cool song. And then just really hopping off that. And yeah, and I remember back then you were kind of thinking we should think of what the product will be, what the end result is going to be. And we can't do that if just songs keep coming up. And like, which song should go into this album?
It's got to get put in the hand and given somewhere.
Yeah, right. And it was, I mean, yeah, it's when like even announcing this stuff, putting in like teasers on YouTube. I remember it started with new song from the 20-song album project, which shifted into new song from the 30-song album project. It's final this time. And then, yeah, there you go.
It's still in my database as triple album.
Yeah, me too.
You know, we passed that milestone a while ago.
I think what really cemented like this is the conclusion, I mean, so far.
The one I got to do.
Plus that one, yes. Is I guess it's when it was the whole Grammy application for the Grammy thing.
Mm-hmm.
What's that, you might ask, folks? Well, we realized because, you know, just how good the music is sounding from everyone. Oh, okay, this is my back on the soapbox. For my other albums, which was just like a hobby project, that this isn't, but especially keeping costs low and whatnot. I put very little effort into advertising. I just put it on Botchido, pushed it on Facebook, YouTube, and that was it. Because it was just the fun of the project. Given just kind of in recognition of all the talent, of all the just the incredible musicianship from everybody on this, it felt like it just so deserved to be seen, to be everybody on the project, deserved to have as many ears listening to them as much as possible. And thus I felt the duty of putting more effort into promotion, publicity than I ever did before in the other projects. And thus, what higher publicity could you get? Possibly the Grammys. So what, like that was the beginning of this year, Joel. We kind of decided, and Steve, we talked about it a bit. We called a few times to kind of see how we could go about that. I didn't do much research beforehand, which I should have done. So once we decided to apply, we realized, oh shoot, there's a lot of requirements we didn't fulfill, like credits.
Most quality deadlines.
Like most,
we threw it together last minute ish. And that was 2 months is last minute.
Yes. And that kind of that was the moment we really realized, okay, we got to go. That was the moment we realized we've got to actually nail this down, because we need to start releasing songs to build up our credit history, to like fit the limit to fit the threshold that the Recording Academy needed. If we'll get disqualified if we put this up, but they should have their decision by now.
So it's all over the website, man. I just like the way you phrase it. We need to build up our credit history.
Yeah, well, it's true.
Good advice in any sphere of life, I suppose.
One thing to know: one album, one single, both is one credit, whether it's instrumentalist, vocalist, or whatever.
Now you're getting into they'll disqualify you.
Okay, never mind. I did not say that. In any case, we released some material and realized, okay, now we've got to actually. And so that's when it changed from this nebulous, never-ending saga to, okay, now let's make this a reality, by mixing, mastering, and releasing.
Shot the block. I wanted to ask this because I was sort of a bit unclear earlier. Is obviously Burning of Auchindoun was released, what was it, earlier today or something? But what other ones from the project are already like listenable out there?
Excellent question. Starting with It's Raining Men, the Wagaki arrangement, which has Sean, Edwin, Steve, yourself, and Sumie Kaneko, Sean Shibata.
That's right.
Reagan Fuji doing the other shamisen.
Okay.
That was that. Brisbane Ladies, with Edwin, with a lot of artists, many of whom are here. Arms of Sorrow with Riley McShane, who did the vocals. Dimitrula, our Greek folk song. And then this Burning of Auchindoun. That's what we've got so far. So we have 5 more songs ready to release. Then we have to, I guess, start mastering some more.
So I can like listen to those on Spotify if I'm like, oh.
Yes. Everybody watching can listen to these on Spotify.
Okay, sweet. I'm gonna go play along with them. Thank you, Kyle. Appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. That's from anyone?
Yeah, actually, when you were talking about the build-up, Joel, I was thinking about the Mannheim Steamroller, which was an orchestral school in the 1800s. And there's also the Mannheim Rocket and the Mannheim something else, but they're all orchestral techniques. And what you were describing is exactly that. So look it up, and maybe you'll find it kind of interesting. The main starter was a composer named Stamitz. I love Stamitz. He wrote a viola concerto, and that was great for me when I was learning viola in high school and college. For me, what was really interesting about the project was how free you engaged everybody, Kyle. So when you said, like, I asked you for some things like, okay, well, what are the things you want? Oh, just you. It's just like, oh, okay, that's very nice. What about me do you want to be put in here? It's like whatever you feel is appropriate. And for me, that's a really good comfort zone because I taught improvisation courses at the University of Ball State University for their summer course. They had a music festival there, and we used to do all these kind of weird things. Like I'd bring out like a broken vase. I remember I stayed with the director of that little festival, and I remember I said, can I just take some things from your house to use for the improvisation thing? And they're like, yeah, sure. It's like, okay, I need that vase. I want that chair over there with this little doohickey over there. It's like, why are you taking all my stuff? It's like, well, this is going to be our new sheet music. And so I got to take a lot of those things that I got to teach and I love doing, and then put it into your ensemble. So I'm listening to everybody play, and I'm hearing some of their voices and ideas, and I just get to feel like I'm jumping in a conversation and going, hey, what do you guys think about this? And then once you'd put my track in, then I'd hear it like 5-6 days later, and then you had other people add in, and I hear them doing the same thing, and they're kind of reacting to what I added in. So whoever is jumping into the conversation gets all this new information, and so then they're just responding onto it. So it almost builds up like a pyramid. So you get all like the finer detail stuff at the top, and then it just shimmers at the end. So it was really quite an interesting conversation within the music as well.
Voice. I'll add on to something there. There's a couple songs, I can't remember which, where I intentionally thought, because I was often in the case of who plays when, who comes in on the rough mix when. Often it was just who is available at the moment because everybody's pretty busy. But there's a couple times where thinking of you, Sean, I thought I should put him in later because I know this person here is going to have, most likely, have some conversational points that I can really hear Sean replying to, as it were. And of course, it would be great, even if that weren't there, you'd probably do something amazing too. But just thinking of like a dinner party, like who's going to be here at this moment for this conversation to direct? Well, I don't know.
I remember there was a time after which I think it was, I don't know if it was because of something I said, but I thought it might have been, where I was like, Kyle, this Edwin guy, you should get him on the ground floor every time. And I remember saying that. I don't remember if it started happening afterwards or beforehand, or if it ever didn't happen. But Edwin, that must have been a slightly different process for you being in on the ground floor most. You're usually the guy who's like, all right, I'm going to define the structure of this. There's going to be a cool harmony this time around, because you got to go first a lot.
Yeah, it was an awesome experience. I mean, first of all, Kyle is a magician at bringing the right people together for this project. I don't know how he did it. Something about my shirt, but I don't even know what shirt you're talking about.
It's blue, shimmery.
Dark skin.
But yeah, it happened to be that I love this style of music, like the fusion of different genres and the ethnic sounds. I'm also part Japanese, part Colombian, so I'm kind of living this fusion as well. And yeah, I love the music. The first time I heard it, it was really interesting. It was at kind of like a time where I had the opportunity or the want to do something really creative during the pandemic times as well. and I had the time to be able to do some recordings, and I do have a decently professional setup here where I can get some decent sounds. So yeah, it all came together perfectly. And yeah, my process was just kind of living with the tracks or whatever was sent to me at that moment, whether it was one track or a bunch of tracks, and just trying to kind of solve the puzzle, I guess, seeing what would be the perfect thing to add to make it the best that I could. So not only seeing it from a player's perspective, but like the producer and arranger perspective as well, which was really, pushing me to kind of like my musical limits, which I really enjoyed. Yeah, and the results have been amazing. I'm really happy with the work. Yeah.
Really
Were there
love
any-
that. Oh, sorry.
Go right ahead now.
Oh, just
Okay.
solving the puzzle is, I really identify with that.
Mm.
Joe.
I was just gonna ask, since you were in on the ground floor and then you heard a lot of the final mixes a lot later, were there any tunes where you're like, I did not expect it to go in that direction. I put my stuff down first.
Yeah, for sure. And
What
yeah,
was like some extreme example?
Yeah, I don't remember which one exactly, but there was some where Kyle just sent me like an a cappella of him singing, like not even in time, just
Just
singing
rubato.
a phrase here and there. Yeah, and it was just up to me to kind of create the whole background, like the musical accompaniment. I think was that the harmonium one that I added as well. Yeah, so things would just come up to me that I kind of just heard, and I would bring it up to Kyle and kind of get his feedback and just try to see what his vision is for it. And then also, like you guys were talking about, thinking ahead of who else is going to play different instruments and what role are they going to have, and playing parts that would allow for that conversational aspect, which is really hard to get when you're recording like this, not everybody together in the studio. So yeah, it was fun to kind of work that arranging mind in that way.
Right. It's interesting to me. I remember I was saying earlier how like there was a period where I was like, I guess it's just gonna work. Oh, all right. In the process, it's like it seemed to me that what you said along those lines was also true for me. It's like when I was like, oh, the sweet spot for this is when you just like, you think about what might happen, but you don't think too hard about it. Like maybe this will be some space for someone or whatever. Okay. Instead of being like, and right here, this is where the person's going to solo like this. And then this is just like, and it generally seems to have just the most gorgeous and fluid results when in good hands,
What was everybody's experience?
Go ahead.
I was going to
What
say,
was
during the
everybody's-
mixing process, it gave us a lot of options as well to kind of finesse the puzzle, like just make sure that it's the right version of the mix.
Right.
What was everyone's experience for instead of being in person and jamming? There's even when you do like a studio session and you have the place for the whole day, you can meet together and everybody's talking and working something out, and then you get a recording after like an hour or two. What was your experience, or what was everyone's experience like having it where you didn't really get to talk to the other musicians, but you just got to hear what they played, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to add on this. And how was it for you working that way? Go for it, Rick.
I was going to say that I feel a little bit anomalous in this discussion because a lot of the musics that Kyle has been involved with in his entire career have been musics that traditionally don't have drums in them. They're very percussive styles, but shamisen music and bluegrass and things like that. And of course, I started out as a drummer, and You know, I've been making my living as a drummer, multiple percussionist for 46 years. I just realized a few days ago, it's been 46 years, but I started producing 40 years ago and entirely in the analog world, where you only could go to a recording studio and people couldn't afford, you know, I mean, I knew a couple of people who owned 4-track TX, but mostly
Right.
you had to go there. So I started producing, you know, well into the analog, and you had to do it a certain way. You couldn't do this project that way, which I think is kind of marvelous that technologically we can do this remotely, and then I can see people are sitting in really nice recording studios at their home. I'm sitting in one right here, you know. So that was really interesting. And then the other thing is that I always have a producer's hat on, and I always have, you know, a rhythm ensemblist hat on, which are sometimes not always the same hats. And so for me, when I first came up to it, I felt a little bit resistant because it's kind of like, you're not going to put your rhythm tracks first. I'm going to come in overdub on stuff, which means that I'm going to have to conform to people's changes in tempi and stuff like that. And I've trained myself to do that really well. If you do ever do a record with Martin Simpson, let me tell you, you gotta play like that, right? It's just the way it goes, right? So I've trained myself to do it, but it's difficult. It's not just super easy. And then also, I'm a composer and a producer, so I was thinking, you know, I want to make my drum tracks so that they're foundational, so that things can be built on it, and not knowing how much would go on afterwards or what was going to go on afterwards.
Right, right, right.
Not never knowing if there was a bass line or what, you know. So initially, I had a little bit of resistance to it, but I just had this thought when you were talking, Joel. And I think Schoenberg's famous for saying that all composition is very, very slow improvisation. Da da ba da ba da
That's clever, yeah.
no da da ba da ba da Okay, I'll write that note in, right? And so I always tell my students, because I teach a lot of improvisatory approaches in all music, is this also means that you know, all improvisation can also be really, really rapid composition. You can take it both ways, that kind of thing. And so the fact of the matter is, even though people naturally and train rhythmically when they're recording together, especially rhythm section tracks, right? You still, if Edwin has put a foundational part on, the next person on is still having the same process. It's just slower. It's not real time, but they're still having the exact same process. And so we're all good musicians. We're all sensitive. And so I just think it's marvelous. I would never make a record this way, and I would never even advise anybody to make a record this way. But I think that it can produce really wonderful results, especially when your musicians are really good and sensitive. So I kind of, after 40 years of producing professionally, hundreds and hundreds of sessions, like I felt like I learned something from this project, which is nice. So
There's a lot of things that you say too that are really interesting to me because so I graduated from the Cleveland Institute of Music, and I was part of the composition department. And there, the main focus of our university or of our conservatory was the composer performer. Because prior to the 1900s, there was no such thing as somebody who just did composing. Everybody was a very well established performer and an extremely, and this is a really important part, all of them were extremely successful improvisers. And what they used to do in Europe is they used to have improvisation battles. And so they would get two pianists and they'd get the same melody and they'd have to do a improvisation. And there's a very famous story with Beethoven and I think it's Daniel Steinbelt, I think is his name, where he just absolutely shreds this guy's improvisation. The story apparently goes that he had Daniel had written out some of the music prior to that, what he's going to play to try to get Beethoven off, and he leaves one of his papers on stand and on the piano stand, and Beethoven takes it and flips it upside down and improvises it for over 4 hours. And then they said there's people who wrote in their diary entries and newspaper entries of just being like, and everybody was just dead silent. Nobody moved. Nobody took a bathroom break. They just watched the whole thing. And even with the example you gave, you sang a little bit of Bach, and Bach was a well-known improviser and sight reader. And we used to go around to places and said, "I'll sight read your piece better than you can play it." So they're like people who were on the fly with extreme levels of musicianship, and that I think was what I think is the magic of this group, is that I can trust Edwin and Kyle, Doug, Rick, Steve, and Joel to, when they say I'm going to lay something down, it's going to be quality. And then on top of it, I don't really feel like I have to work that hard, because I'm one, I don't have to be I'm not a foundation setter instrument, but I'm a melody instrument that responds and adds on top of it. And everything there, the foundation was so rock solid that anything I built on top of it stood strong.
You know what, though, Sean? All that I agree with, but from how I was looking at these songs as the tracks are coming in, definitely like guitar, bass are like very foundational instruments. For me, your shakuhachi was one of the foundation in setting the mood of the song. Like often I relied on having you in there for me to really feel like, okay, this is where the song is going to go somehow. Even though technically
there was places that it's interesting. So I went to some other like concerts that have shakuhachi in their large bands, and I noticed that almost the shakuhachi never plays a supportive role in those groups. But what's interesting about our tracks is that the shakuhachi plays lots of supportive roles, where it's just sometimes it's just a little scale kind of going down in counter motion with your melodic line, or I'm playing in a sixth with you just for a little bit, and it colors it as a supportive role, making it somewhat foundational. So you're definitely right in that.
That breath. I was especially, I mean, it even factored in when there was a vocal part going, but even without that, the shakuhachi adding that life, that voice, the breath and all. Yeah, it was really instrumental in capturing the song's flavor or setting between that and guitar.
I think another thing too, that what Joel did that was so wizard level, stuff that he was doing, was that sometimes you have instruments like the shakuhachi, or like, let's say, even like oboe or something that really just sticks out, and sometimes it can take the show because the sound is so interesting. But the way that Joel mixed it all in made it feel natural, and it wasn't just like, okay, now shakuhachi, listen to me, yeah, shakuhachi, okay, then it's done, and then everybody goes, what the heck was that? It was very like in and out and natural, rather than boom, here's something special, okay, now I'm taking it away from you.
I will say, you know what, I think the pandemic might have contributed to this in a technological way, insofar as I've done recording projects over the years where people send in stuff that was recorded in disparate environments. And it can work, if people are paying attention to all the tech stuff from the beginning as a through line to the end. But mostly it doesn't work that well. And with this project, there was like 40 plus musicians recording in just under 40 plus separate
23.
locations. 23. 30 plus musicians.
Including my mother, who's in the same place. So
including your mother. Okay, recording in maybe 20. Anyway, the point is, it freaking worked. And despite all the moving parts, everyone seemed to have, like Rick alluded to, that many of us live in a dope recording studio. I will cop to that. But for considering how good and dead and like not ambient in its own unique, unchangeable way everything was recorded, it just worked out so smoothly. I feel like, by the way, I wanted to say this before when you guys were talking about process, and Kyle was like, and then I made sure Sean happened early. I was like, it feels like in the last 8 or 10 songs, Kyle's been especially like, and this person gets their first try, and then this, and then that we finally got the system down, guys. Let's make an album. What do you say?
Quality. That was just the the getting our feet wet,
Right.
which can happen. Plug time. If you, one thing to note, Waves of Harmony would love your support. Bringing 33 artists in on 40 tracks and beyond was not cheap. So if you love musical projects like this, I would like to see you prove it by checking out the GoFundMe link on the top line of the description below. Anything helps. We very much appreciate it.
We haven't heard from Steve and Douglas. I would like to hear some of their thoughts too.
Yes.
I'll jump in. Why not? I was gonna jump in on. My name's Doug, by the way, of the Lee clan, slayer of donuts, I guess. I played the glasses.
I'm in that band too, by the way.
I played the glasses, which most people are somewhat familiar with. It's a wine glass, you know, and so you know, made a right proper instrument with you know, 28 chromatic notes, and it sounds kind of like it sounds like a flute if you just take out the fundamental and you just leave all that fat harmonic, you know, kind of for shorthand. One thing that I think was very interesting about the process and on the topic of sensitivity was, and to COVID, there's a few things that all come together, but sensitivity I think was interesting because, you know, as someone who, you know, just received the tracks definitely with most of the foundational stuff in there. I would definitely count the shakuhachi as foundational, 100%. In fact, I was pretty much riffing on the shakuhachi a whole lot. Like I looked to that as kind of a guide for what I was doing, and it was actually a real fun pairing for me to do. But in terms of sensitivity, I think just having this certain amount of trust that, you know, hey, what do you want? Oh, just, you know, just whatever, just play, and you get this gorgeous track. Before I've added anything, it's gorgeous, and you're like, oh, okay, I just play anything. At least for me, that created a very sensitive process, right? Like, okay, I'm going to deliver something and I want to make sure it sounds really good. So I'm actually going to spend probably way longer on it than I would have, let's say, if we were all just meeting in a studio for a real-time session, right? Okay, we got 8 hours in the studio today, and then we're out, you know, so we're a couple hours set up and you run through the songs. But I think with some of this stuff, most people having home studios, probably a COVID thing, you know, I didn't really start taking home recording seriously until COVID.
That's what I meant. It's not,
yeah,
and
right,
many
like
people did, and now everyone's tracks are awesome.
Right, exactly. And probably you could count me in that, you know,
Yes,
list.
totally.
Pre-COVID, yeah, I might have been able to give you something, but it probably would have been pretty crappy, you know. But I do think that the sensitivity was a real revelation for me, you know, about 3 or 4 songs into the process, you know, where you're listening to them, you like this stuff, oh, great, you know, because, you know, we're all, at least I am, you know, it's like we're just beat ourselves up. Oh, God, I hope I said it. I hope that it was, it's all terrible. It's all terrible, right? All these things, you know, but yeah, and so I just think that extra amount of time that's added with somebody in their own space with trust and really zero, you know, just here you go, have fun. I think it creates a situation where everybody all of a sudden is kind of has got their producer hat on that they internally always had. And it just makes perfect sense to me that that most everybody involved just delivered really quality stuff, you know. I think it's a birds of a feather thing too, a bit, you know, in terms of like Kyle is probably going to know other really good musicians because Kyle's a good musician. He's known, you can legitimately say, around the world. I met you through, you know, Taichi, and you know, you were a mythical figure, you know, that I heard of when I was in Osaka. My shamisen is from Nara, but yeah. So anyhow,
Mythical
right,
Big
so,
K.
huh?
Connections.
Exactly.
Jonathan from Nara.
Anyhow, but yeah, so I'll just wrap it up there. I'm just riffing on whatever, but
Well,
I
actually,
wanted to
Doug,
ask before we throw
wait.
it over to Steve, though, if you don't mind, is I remember somewhere along the line, Kyle and I started doing production meetings every week or so. And it was a rocky start to every week, but eventually we made it there. And I remember asking you on several different occasions before I gave up and stopped asking you because I was incredulous. I remember being incredulous that when you say, hey, whoever want to record, in much in the style that Douglas just, said he was approached. Here's the thing, just here's some beautiful music. Do whatever you want, whenever. I was of the mind that like more than 50% of people, when confronted with that, will be paralyzed by the choice rather than just confident and be like, okay, cool, here's what I got, let's do it. And I remember being so incredulous. I'm like, wait, you mean everyone was just like this with like no direction? And this is what happened? No, you had to have given them some direction. You had to have said like, start here, don't start here. You should really tell them that. And I remember just being so surprised at how little direction was given and how great the track. So nobody was paralyzed by indecision or was like, oh man, this took me 3 months because I didn't know exactly what to do. I wish I had to. That never didn't happen to anyone.
Not really. But what was interesting is that a couple people, just a couple, they sent in their track. And interestingly, I could hear their hesitation in what they played. They play was very good, everything on, but just something personality-wise just felt held back. And I said, don't worry about it. Don't worry about stepping on toes. If you're concerned, then that's all you need to be. Just, push it, just push it. And then they sent another one, and then it somehow just felt natural.
Hair director.
All right. I want to.
I just.
Oh yes.
I just love that. There was one direction you sent me one time. You said, "I just need toots here, here." I just do the whole thing, and then if you want a solo there, you can do that. And like
That's cool.
Yeah. Doug, before Steve, Doug, you quickly mentioned, just the whole. I don't know, the magic of it, of the connections, like the Shami and Fernara and such and such. I would love you to tell that story of meeting Jesse, who's was meant to be here today, couldn't make it, but we're all thinking of you, Jesse, who's also a mutual friend of Rick. Steve, I don't know, Jesse Autumn?
I don't.
Okay, so it's Rick, myself, we're in the same homeschool community together. Is a mutual connection there. But Doug, you had a chance encounter without ever meeting her before. Would you care to Mardi Gras?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Care to Mardi Gras.
Please.
I had been just working with you, doing the tracks and playing harp and hearing these harp tracks. I was very curious about the harp tracks because I was also hearing koto. So, and because I got a koto there, so it was like, oh, he's got a harp and koto, man, that's fucking rad. Oh, I'm sorry.
Swallowed it.
Yeah. But anyhow, so it had been in my brain, and I mentioned some missive off in our emails. Hey, I'm driving to Mardi Gras because that's what you do, and so I'm probably not gonna, no more recordings from me for a little bit. And then you sent something about, oh, I've got a harp friend out there, or the person who played the harp lived in New Orleans. And then, Mardi Gras Day, I'm just walking down the street. I'm in the Marigny. It's like 6 p.m., 7 p.m. And I hear this harp playing right on, I think she was on like Burgundy or, right there, Frenchman. And I just was like, this is her. I knew it was the person, right? Because New Orleans is a very small town, and there was just something about this situation. I was like, this is the person that played on Kyle's record. So I kind of calmly waited because she was playing this beautiful piece. I didn't want to interrupt, and then just said, hey, do you by chance know a guy named Kyle Abbott who plays the shamisen? And she was definitely kind of one of those like record scratch kind of moments, for her, like, yeah, what is happening right now? And then kind of, yeah, I played the, glasses, great to see you. And then just, into the night kind of a thing. I've got a film photograph of her I'll send you on 35 millimeter that I took.
Great.
And she told me
I
that.
ask everyone I meet, basically that question, and usually it turns out something like,
Yeah, right.
do you
Funny
not
thing-
by any chance know Kyle Abbott? Hey.
Um,
That
the-
question's got me into a lot of trouble, you know.
So far,
Uh,
it's good for me.
so far. And she said she was only there for like, she was only going to be 15 more minutes, and then she was just going to pack up and, head out. So chance timing.
Which makes sense, yeah, because it was the sun was going down, so Mardi Gras was over, it was done, But yeah, it was amazing. Just one of those hilarious, funny. The world is a big place, and the world is a very, very small place.
Yeah. Steve.
That is so random. That is so random. I'm actually going to go to New Orleans in a couple of weeks. I'll be in New Orleans.
Nice.
If you see any harpists on the side of the street, you know what to do.
I should, yeah. Then she'll really come out there. Yeah, I'm taking my daughters are doing their national gymnastics competition thing. So
Oh,
it's kind of
nice.
thing. So yeah, I'll be there. But yeah, definitely felt like there's a lot of destiny, kind of magical destiny thing with this project. It did kind of just fall into place. It was definitely a good time for me too. Like, well, obviously everybody with the lockdowns and stuff, and kind of turning inward to that yin side, getting more creative. So definitely, I don't know, I'm kind of scattered a little bit, kind of all over the place with all the different things it meant to me and kind of did for me. I go through all these moods and ups and downs with, my life in music and being a bass player and stuff. And it definitely was like just what the doctor ordered for me at that time. Doing a lot of different styles and different instruments in my life. I always kind of feel like I'm super blessed and I'm super like love everything I do. And then I sort of get obsessed, and then I'll kind of get tired of a certain style or a certain instrument. I'll just get, so I think at that point I was really feeling like where are my musical family at? That's like, I like to mix a lot of different world music styles and be super creative, ambient, but also I love song structure stuff. And so it was just like, all of a sudden it was like, just sent in like, okay, here's like, you're going to feel at home. Here's some people that you're going to have kinship with. So it was like, that definitely was just for me. I had a good experience during the lockdowns. I got creative and I wrote a lot of songs and I did some videos, but it was also when you're not out performing, you don't even realize that it kind of affects you, so even if I'm doing a conventional gig and just playing bass, and there's still a lot of emotional gratification you get, and the fellowship with other musicians. So I think I was definitely getting that thing a lot of musicians were going through, of just kind of feeling depressed. So having that, like,
there's no work, but don't worry, there's also no friends.
Yeah, exactly. You couldn't even enjoy it. Yeah, so that it provided a lot for me. And I, not to get all mushy like that, but yeah, I think I pretty much cried like every single song I'm sitting there tracking, and just like, this is so beautiful. Like, or the pipes come in, it's like, no, that's it. Like, so I definitely was like, it gave me a ton of just that family feeling, just hearing everybody's, instruments through that, and just kind of feeling like, yeah, this is the kind of project where I'm meant for, I love everything I do. So I don't want to bag on anything I'm doing. I love every role I do, and I am kind of up and down on my moods and stuff like that. But it definitely was just like, okay, here's like something I can put my finger on and point to. And like, this is what I would do. Like, if I had $1 billion and I could just like do any project I would want to do. So it was very special. I'm super thankful to all you guys for that. Like, and Kyle, especially for spearheading it. So that was, definitely a big part of my experience. Was I kind of did just feel like, okay, like you've got like that musical, there's people out there that have that same, like, ethic of fusion, acoustic fusion, with different world music. I definitely felt that too. Also, just side note with Rick and the International Live Looping Festival, that's been another where it's like, oh, okay. Like here's, a family there's no genre attached to it, but it's all, that way. So that meant a lot to me too. So it provided a cool thing for me, not to be selfish about it. But then I guess on the more technical side of it, my experience was I always loved recording in my home studio. I know my instrument so well, where to, put the mics and how to, I know for me when I can listen back and I can tell where the special takes were. And it's just so, it's just such a low pressure, comfortable environment. Like my studio is exactly what I want. I can have everything be just how, so that's a certain amount of comfort. And I've also been on the other end of it. I've done a lot of collaborations like online with people, transatlantic collaborations. And I've kind of been in the editor's chair for a lot of that too. So I've had people send me like, here's a bunch of parts, and I'll, do one really simple and do one where you put a lot of fills in, and then I can mix and match later. And I think of Adam Neely has a whole thing. It's like the DAW is part of the modern musicians, like, composition tools. I use that, especially with the bass ensemble stuff. I don't have a bunch of bass players around. So if I can record all my parts, it's a good thing probably. I use that DAW as part of the compositional process too. And yeah, as the editor on a lot of collaborations like that, I've definitely kind of been in that chair that Joel was in a lot, just, so when I went to go record, I definitely I felt like, okay, I know what I would want if I'm editing, don't leave in a lot of mistakes or stuff like that, or practice it until you can perform it well from start to finish, because giving an editor a lot of work to do and weeding out parts, or it's like that can be a real drag. So I tried to make my parts really clean, or I'd have little systems kind of put in there where I would play the first, maybe if it went through the form a few times, I'd play the first two very, very simple. Then maybe later in the song, as the fervor built up, I would add more propulsion or add more fills. And then I figured that could easily be like, give the editor a lot of material. So I kind of thought of it from when I've been the editor in that position on collaborations.
That's so sweet, man. Like the fears that I was discussing earlier that I felt throughout especially near the beginning of the project, was that like, nobody will really think of that. But listening to what you said and listening to what Doug said about like, yeah, everyone was just like, I wanted to take extra care because I really, they entrusted me to just give my own opinion no matter what, with no direction. So I really wanted to do a good job. I was like, oh man, I didn't account for that. Sounds like everyone did that though, and that's why it's so good.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I actually recorded with Kyle instead of at my studio, because we live in Santa Cruz, right? And
oh yeah, you guys are close enough, eh?
yeah, and half of what I was thinking was, how do I keep less work for Kyle after the fact, And so there would be times where I'd go, I'm not sure. Let's overdub it and really get it definitive. And Kyle would go, no, that's fine. I'll edit it later. And it's like, no, you don't know what you're up for. You're gonna have so much extra. I don't know what you're in for. There's gonna be a lot.
I got time.
Yeah, but I mean, but like Steve and Doug, I really heavily edited myself so as not to give you too much work to do. And I didn't even know, Joel, that you were in a producing role in it. I thought it was just Kyle at the time. So
I did tried. A lot of like weeding bits out, and then Kyle was like, "Oh wait, I could do that," and I was like, "Yeah, you could do that." And then we shared. I think most Kyle probably does most of it, if there's any that makes it through. I wasn't aware that you guys were doing it on the front end. I think the fact that everyone was like, "Wait, who's gonna have to do this? Let's all make it so nobody has to work too hard." Everyone did a little bit. It seems like the best type of distributed arrangement.
How many people
responsibilities.
on this list make their own records in their home?
That's a good question.
Yeah, so
Oh,
so we're all thinking as producers in certain respects. Every time I go
Yeah.
as a musician to a studio, I have my producer's hat on, so yeah.
Joel, would you mind telling the folks at home what your father, Earl Mackey, said relating to the tracks? Like you asked him to help you with mastering like Steve's track, and then he said,
What did he say?
Oh,
Do we-
he
I don't
said
remember that.
like it's so easy to mix this because just everybody's such pros.
Yeah,
remember?
yeah. It's basically the same thing that I was saying earlier, right? Dad was just like, everything just sounds good. And I was like, yeah, that pretty much sums it up.
He told me
You know-
when
My favorite part of this entire thing was when Kyle sends me a couple of recordings. I think it was like some of the stuff I had like really big solos in, and I'm listening to it and I'm just kind of like, wow, man, this has really come together. And my wife comes in and she goes, why can't you play stuff like this? And I go, that is me. It's like, wow, I would actually listen to this.
That's like the best compliment you could possibly receive.
It's like, yeah, she's like, that actually
Like, you
sounds
could
good.
never
Like, so
be
what
this
about
good, though.
what about everything else I did? All that you just throw away? So it's like,
Yeah. That's great. Why don't you do more stuff like this? Okay.
That's awesome.
that's so fun.
Man.
Joel, I just looked up your dad. I didn't know who your dad was. And
Oh yeah, Pops was a big dog in a pond there.
yeah, Sparks to Helen Reddy. Goodness gracious. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
My dad's favorite story is that when Sparks went to England so they could gain rock and roll legitimacy, that the Leslie in the room over here that has Sparks spray painted on it was one that he and his brother lifted up onto stages this high over and over again by themselves across England. That's my favorite rock and roll story of my dad's.
In the late 60s, just apropos of that, I was loading a double kick drum, humongous set into the thing, and then the keyboard player in my band, he had a Hammond B3, two Leslies,
right.
and a Fender
Few
Rhodes,
Leslies.
and I had to help him load in and out every gig. I was in such good shape, let me tell you. So
Yeah, dude.
know-
My dad told me that, but that's what people did back then. Two
I know.
Leslies.
I know. And as you well know, Leslie is a heavy mother,
Oh.
shut your mouth. Yeah.
You could put 2 or 3 bodies in a Leslie if you tried hard.
Yeah.
They're huge.
Well, I did, but let's not go there. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not supposed to say that out. Could.
I want to Leslie.
Why they're so heavy.
What have I been
Two
missing out
Leslies
on
lit up.
here? Like I need to. There's something to it. I bet it's got to sound fun.
Yeah, they're giant. No, they're awesome. They're just enormous. People put up with really heavy stuff back then.
you know, my mom was in a touring rock band in the late 60s, early 70s. She actually no mid 60s. She was 16 and played in a rock band where everybody was like 22, 23, 24, and they were touring around. And my grandfather had to take her everywhere. And my grandfather told me a story about when they got played on the radio. And I was like, for me, I was like, when he told me the story, I was like, man, I'm on the radio 15 times. And then he's like, no. Radio in 1965 was like,
Right.
You are a rock star, dude. Like your
This is
little
the only way
crappy
anyone hears about
podcast.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, like your crappy podcast means nothing to me. that was Kansas City radio, boy. It's
Right. Your podcast equivalent back then was my neighbor told me about this guy she heard once.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
And everybody listened to music through a 6-inch speaker, a mono speaker in a car.
Yeah, man.
Everybody.
Even before that,
You know, the
releasing
first-
was releasing sheet music.
Yeah, right, right.
You know, the first radio broadcasting program was one that you actually had to dial into, and it was sponsored by Bell in like the early 1900s, and you actually had to call into a number and you'd hold it up to your ear for the entire concert, and it was like a little kind of sound through it. So and we have to remember that wasn't that long ago. But I saw this meme, which is it just came into my mind, where this guy was I'm so guilty of this too, having a score on like the airplane or on the train, you're kind of preparing yourself. And the picture is of the guy reading it, and he's like, really old school Walkman here.
Yeah.
Quick quick bathroom break, and then I have a question from our audience.
Hey, do we have to? Yeah.
Feel free to
Who
talk
needs a
amongst
bathroom
yourselves.
break?
So
It's just Kyle.
I do
Is it
want
just
to.
Kyle?
I think it's just
Awesome.
Kyle.
Okay.
Okay.
But I do want to encourage everybody who's watching it to support the project, and especially what Kyle is doing here. And it definitely, as somebody who has hired musicians for concerts, who has hired people to do things for me with CD collaborations, you would be amazed how fast your bill racks up. And we're not talking about going to a nightclub and getting bottle service. It's way more expensive than that. And especially with this many people and the amount of hours and time that he's put in and not been able to do other avenues of making money, it's worth your dollar to invest in it to make it happen, because the music that is coming out and the level of artistry that's on this CD is totally worth it. And I can't wait to have my own copy of it as well. And again, it's something that I would listen to. I was listening to it and I was like, this is really good. My wife wants to buy it, wanted a copy of it. And some of the friends that I've had over and I've showed them, they just can't believe that. They're like, wow, you actually can do good stuff. I'm like, you've been to my shows, man. It's like they almost like forgot, but it's just
Well,
like
you just need a third 23-person band behind you.
I just needed 23 really great musicians to make me sound somewhat decent.
Until my family wants to.
I told Kyle I'm going to buy a copy of it when it comes out because I want to be supportive of it, and Kyle was supportive of me to do it, and I feel really, so yeah.
My line that I say that is
Rick,
just my advertising, non-advertising is just like, this is one of my favorite things I've ever worked on. If you think my taste is good, you might like this because my taste loves this.
So Rick, you might buy one CD, but I'm going to buy 2 CDs.
Well,
hell's up.
I will say this. I definitely charged Kyle, I think it was like $1 million a song to do
It's about
recording. So I know he's deeply, they're foreclosing on his house for sure to start with. So
plus tax.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Doug, he only paid you that much. My agent got me 1.5,
Oh no, we start comparing.
Oh goodness, and then the breakup of the band.
I better get them out of here before they realize I'm all of their agents.
Awesome.
So Joel, you were supposed to manage me. How come I only got a Big Mac with a small soda?
I better get out of here.
You couldn't even give me a large?
And it was a small soda.
It was a small soda. You couldn't even give me a large.
Rise and fall of Waves of Harmony. So we have a question from our audience. This is from Christian, who I believe, I didn't catch the last name before, but I think he was the first donator to the GoFundMe project. Thank you, Christian.
Go Christian.
I think it is. If it's not, you have a chance to make me not a liar. GoFundMe link below. His question. So we've kind of answered this, but maybe this could be more succinct. Did the musicians find it hard or awkward to improvise alone to a single track, not getting the emotive feedback of having other musicians present, while knowing their submission had to gel with members?
A little, yes. Yeah, especially as a drummer, because I'm so used to being first. You know, typically everything gets built on you,
Right.
and I was playing after the fact, so that was insecure. And then it was like, as a matter of fact, I don't. Were there bass tracks on the track I tracked in? I don't think there were at that
Probably
time.
There-
not. A lot of times Steve was even later than I would have imagined.
Yeah, there may have been some, but yeah.
Yeah, I was going to mention that in a way for tracking bass relates exactly to the question, but I don't know, the wider the waveform, the narrower the path. Something like my part felt pretty dictated somewhat, or I fit in a few things, but by the time I got it, it felt really natural to sort of know like this, just here's what works on this. And I'm just
Like the music told you what to play more.
yeah, it was a little, which is nice in a way. It was a blessing because it just was like so just clear. The role was really clear.
Mhm.
But yeah, that did affect it too. The timeline where we were added in might have affected how free it felt as well too.
I can say for my end, what I found to be the most insecure is um, I would have to get myself out of the funk of saying, I don't know if Kyle would like this or not. And I was trying to sometimes play tracks to make Kyle happy rather than just play what I want. What would make him happy is to play what I would be happy with. And so I took this one risk and I said, okay, I have this 300-year-old flute. It's in the key of the piece. I'm just gonna play it. I'm just gonna do whatever I want with it, and we're just gonna see what happens. And then Kyle messages me back. He's like, I don't know what you did on this one, but this one was so awesome. And so I was like, yeah, I used a really old ratchety flute and just wanted to see what would happen. And is like the risk was worth all of the rewards. And after that, I felt a lot more comfortable just to go at it and just say, okay, I'm just going to play literally whatever I feel. And I know if Kyle doesn't like it, he's just going to take it out. No harm, no foul.
Mhm.
Yeah, the process was pretty similar for me too. Like the music seemed to dictate what was needed. My instrument's a little unusual, so it's a little up to my call because there really isn't super historical precedent for glasses in anything. So, but it sits like a flute. So I just followed the flute. But yeah, I do think I'll echo a lot of that sentiment too, of just kind of going through the motion, of recording the first song and seeing like, okay, how does this work? And then that being successful, then that I got the exact same sensation that you were talking about, Sean, which is just, oh, okay, I get it. I'm just gonna use my ear and see what sounds nice. And if it doesn't sound nice, I'm not gonna play it, and then we'll just take it from there. And that always seemed to be, okay. I don't know. So yeah.
Oh, it was. And uh, commenting on your feeling of it being sitting like a flute. I forgot which song it was, but you intentionally did pair with the shakuhachi with what Sean was doing melodically. You mixed it, which was a beautiful combination.
Yeah, I love that pairing in particular. I think it really accentuates the overtones of both instruments get really, really fat, which is kind of the thing I think about a flute is the overtone. So it's beautiful, full, Yeah, that was a real fun aspect, having that shakuhachi there. And being able to pair with the shakuhachi was really neat too. I'm assuming what I was hearing was shakuhachi every time. Maybe there was some traditional flute in there, but
The other flutes have wave, like at least 2 octaves of overtones or of fundamental,
right.
above it. You can usually tell tone wise. If it was a cool, nice, pretty tone, it was Sean.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was hearing a lot. I was hearing bamboo a lot in it. That kind of bendy bamboo sound that I always think of for a shakuhachi. But yeah, I kind of forgot what we were talking about, to be honest.
And as Steve said, Douglas, the envelope of the glass is wide, so that's gonna change what you put on top of something or what fits in with something.
Yeah,
You
sure.
know.
Plus, I think the music was really interesting. A lot of the tracks I received, and this was probably obviously this is Kyle kind of being the wizard behind the curtain. But a lot of the ones I received tended to be a lot of like English Isles folk music pieces, for lack of a better descriptive. But with this wonderful, rich tonal quality of a lot of Japanese instruments, which was so beautiful because to me, actually, I mean, it was only really that my familiarity with Japanese instruments that I was able to pick that out very succinctly. But I think I don't think if you know that, I think you could actually just totally hear the recordings and a lot of that stuff just believe that, oh, this is just how it was recorded, right? I mean, it just sounds so natural. Of course, if you're ethnomusicologist, you would clearly know the difference. But I don't know. I was just very surprised how well and beautifully everything gelled together. Yeah, and I just leaned into that. So I did a lot of droning and then matching the flute, and then just thinking of a hurdy-gurdy was what I was trying to channel, somewhere between the flute and the hurdy-gurdy. But.
So, like the pieces, especially, I always thought of you in like Black is the Color of My True Love's Hair, Love Has Brought Me to Despair, Apple, which is on the Spotify thing. Gave My Love an Apple. Those, like, I always, when you hear, they're kind of melancholy-ish songs, but when I hear the Glass, I always think of like a starry night, like the twinkle, making like the twinkle of, and when listening, like it, whenever the Glass was in there, it almost transported me to like a physical location. The song did with the Glass, singing like that. That was the sky. Whenever I had that in, I always wanted to hear the sky, and that's the kind of the instructions I gave to Joel when mixing it, to kind of take out the sharp, the shrill, because like the raw tracks, there was kind of the rubbing of the finger on the Glass was pretty harsh. And we did a bit of working to kind of get the right tone. And I always kind of said to Joel, like, just think of the atmospheric of the it's like all there, stereo panning, so it's all there around you. Blah blah blah.
Wonderful.
It is interesting that you have like with shamisen and koto, you tend to have these instruments that have a really strong transient. It's the banjo versus the guitar, say, or something like that. And then you have shakuhachi, which is longer tones and that kind of thing. It's a really nice melding of things. And just apropos of nothing, Douglas, have you ever played a bowed psaltery?
I have not. No.
Do you know what it is?
Yeah. And they're absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. So it's just the zither that you bow, but the thing is, it's chromatic, so that when you're bowing it, the overtones of the resonant overtones are all the tones. It's not just the tones of an open tune guitar or six strings or something like that. So you have a lot of quiet dissonant overtones in it, and to me, it's a perfect marriage between a glass harmonica and a violin. It's got the reediness of it, but it's also got that kind of thing of the glass. I play glass too, although not like you. But I have six of them.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I have sextonic scale, but
hey,
I love that timbre.
It's very fun. It's very fun. I got introduced to it in New Orleans, back to New Orleans. In fact, there was a gentleman who plays in the he doesn't play anymore. He's still out there, but he's getting up there in age a little bit. But he used to play in front of the church in Jackson Square, and then
also on the street.
Yeah, for sure.
What was his name, out of curiosity?
Peter Bennett.
Peter Bennett, because there was a guy who used to come, and he had a huge setup, and he played on the mall, and this is like 40 years ago. It's the first time I ever heard it, and he was amazing. He was an incredible player. And he
Mm-mm-mm.
said he was from New Orleans, and I never remembered his name, but I always wanted to hear him play again.
Yeah, I think that was him. There's also
Must
another
have been.
guy.
It was
Uh,
a badass. Yeah,
yeah. Wonderful, wonderful.
yeah, yeah. You go down to
Road
the
trip
mall in
to New
Santa.
Orleans,
Yeah, you go to the mall
Mardi Gras time.
and listen to Tom Scribner playing musical saw, and this guy playing like the mall in Santa Cruz at that time. And I was going to say, because of time, I have to go pretty soon. And I wondered, did you want me to quickly tell my Kevin Kometz shamisen
Yes,
connection story?
please.
Okay,
Yes,
I've got to
please.
go, and I don't want to because this has really been fun, guys. Thank you. Um, well, I was just going to say that in my life, I had this tradition of walking meditations. And so, like, I learned how to play trumpet by playing a pocket trumpet while I drove. And I wouldn't pay attention to the trumpet. I'd pay attention only to the driving, like in a walking meditation. And so I have walking meditations that I do, if I'm working on frame drum or kalimbas or flutes or whatever, if I'm working on something I can walk with. And again, I don't pay attention to what I'm doing. I'm just sort of playing, and I get better at playing whatever I'm playing, but I'm looking at nature and stuff. So I would go up and down the mall sometimes just doing this. And one day I passed this kid who had this obvious, strange looking ethnic instrument, which I did not know. And I knew a fair amount about world instruments because I've been a world fusion artist since the late 70s. But I didn't know this instrument. And so I stopped and I said, I gave him a couple bucks and said, thanks a lot. What is this? And he said, it's a shamisen. And so he was a nice guy. And so, I 3 months later, I'm walking down playing Kanjira or something like that, and there's this kid again. And only he's like way better than he was 3 months before, like way better. And like, whoa, that's cool. So this happened for about 2 years. I kept every 6 months or so coming by this guy, and he just got better and better and better and better and better. And then one day I finally said, hey, I don't want any money for your busking. I don't want any of your money, but could I sit in and play frame drum with you, or whatever I had? And he said, yeah. So we started playing, and then ultimately I ended up, performing a little bit with God of Shamisen and was on their records and everything. And little by little, which is really crazy, I've played and recorded with almost every great shamisen player who's ever come to California, and of course they've all come to Santa Cruz because of Kyle and because of Kevin and whatever, So like I've played with really good shamisen players now, and it was all completely serendipitous. I just bumped into this kid.
Kyle, is Rick on Agree? Is he playing drums?
No, at that time, someone had contacted me who wanted shamisen
Oh,
tracks, so we just did a tradey thing. I think
That's
Ricky
the
might.
only
I don't know if-
Monsters of Shamisen stuff that I'm really familiar
And that was itself wasn't Monsters of Shamisen. I think that was one of his
with.
other
It wasn't. It was all like the same people.
Foxy Cock, or he had a couple bands that were in the same area, Stratosphere. It was Agree to Have Sex with Us was the full title, but we just called it Agree on the public version.
Kind of gives away the whole joke of the song when you say the full title like that.
I feel really honored to be on this project, and I also really nice to meet y'all. This is really fun.
Likewise, Rick.
And,
Cheers.
I really.
and
It's wonderful to
I
have
hope
you.
we get to play together again some point in the future. We've all got DAWs now, so
That's right.
And going forward, definitely some live concert stuffs will be in the works. We did a session with
Sure.
Edwin, Doug, Joel, and a few other people. Just did a live filming of Arrogant Dido, one of the songs. And needless to say, it proved that a live ensemble could be done very
Yeah.
well.
Working.
later on this this YouTube will stay up right after the fact.
Yes.
I'll post a photograph to it of my living room so you can see what I play because I got a
Oh,
really
yes.
Please.
fun
Yes,
photograph
please.
of my living room and all the instruments that are in it. But and Steve,
Rock and
I'll be
roll.
playing with you soon, right?
Yes, we'll be jazzing it up. Yeah, later this month.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to that.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so fun.
Blessings and
All right.
nice to meet y'all.
Thank you so much, Rick, for coming and being a part of
Night,
the
Rick.
ensemble.
See you, Rick.
Thanks, guys.
Good
Until
one,
next
Rick.
time,
Cheers.
Rick Walker, ladies and gentlemen. Well, goodness. Oh, quick question. I enjoyed Burning of Auchindoun. Thank you, Austin Cooper. Did you guys have a theme story across all the tracks?
I don't know who Austin Cooper is, but I know we didn't really have a theme story.
A theme story across all of the tracks of Burning of Auchindoun?
No, I think what he means is like all of the tracks on the album. Like, do they have like a strong storyline or things
Right.
like that?
Is it like
Oh.
Songs of the Sea or songs about drinking?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say so. A lot of the songs, my favorites, are public domain, which means you can do whatever you want. No, that's a friend told me. From the 1800s or so, often very oral. Very vocal, choral and such. And they're very story focused. Because there's no electricity, no TV. I don't know if that's why, but just the song, at least maybe it's the songs I like. They just have really strong stories and very like not leaving out details. Murder ballads, of course, Longing for the Days of Home, things that really, songs when I was 12, I could easily sing them. And then now I can barely sing them without crying because they're just so heavy, so real. And thus, yes, a lot of the songs are from those times, 1800s, early 1900s. They are that is the theme. They're very story rich. So for some things, definitely that could help. Oh, like Sean, I remember talking with you about this. One of the songs that's not out yet, Lady Gay, from the 1800s or earlier. It's about the general lyrics is, there was a lady who had 3 children. She sent them away to school. They all died. And she prayed to God to send them back to me, back to her. And then like Christmas time, they come running back. So she puts out a table with food and wine. This was the times babies could drink wine at the time. But the kids, one of them said, like, take it away because we have to go back to the Heavenly Father. And then she puts out a long, bedspreads for them to sleep. And they say, like, take it off. For yonder stands our Savior dear, and with him we soon shall be. Green grass goes over our heads, mother, cold clay lies over our feet, and every tear you shed for us wets our winding sheet or feet or something. It's real, it's when you hear these lyrics, that kind of is all you really need to know for playing. It really sets a mood. So, yeah. Burning of Auchindoun, as you can hear, which is a traditional one about, like, I guess the real clans of the time. I met Macintosh on the road, and I guess he's going for his revenge, and say, don't do that, you'll be beheaded or something. And then, I don't care, I'm gonna burn it, kind of emotion. Blah, blah.
I'd like to respond to that question
Yes,
a little
please.
bit.
Yes,
because
please.
I think there's the theme without thinking about. There hasn't been a theme, I think, is the answer. There hasn't been a conscious, like, I'm going to select these because they're all about whaling or anything like that. But as a result, the theme, because I've heard all of these selections. There's almost 40 of them in the trunk here that we've been working on. And the theme of selection is basically the theme of Kyle's personality. He likes really heavy, deep, old stuff and whimsy and
My inner emo?
Yes. Yeah, it's like there's a bunch of these really weighty, old, intense, like heavy history songs. And then there's also like popcorn. And it's raining men.
That just had to
It's
be done.
like,
That just had to be done.
I mean, you had to do it. So that's the through line. I think it's a lot of what Kyle is talking about, but there's a healthy amount of like, wait, and then they did what?
Okay, I was
Really
thinking
quite
of a
nice.
theme. I see. I was thinking of a theme of one track, of one song, not the entire thing. Right, right.
I see, I see. Yeah, I'm not sure what our listener was asking per se, but if they meant it for the whole record, that's the theme, is Kyle style.
You're right. Which makes, and that's what he did mean. Which made the thought as we were planning, like which songs should go into which album, how to segment them, became a bit difficult because they are quite stark,
Right.
like dark, light, weird, passing strange, Shami Delicate such.
Yeah, some of the weird stuff is like intensely weird. Steve, you said something earlier that I didn't get to respond to, but it definitely felt like, when we were talking about like, this is a project that I really like. This was where I can find a home. This resonates with me. This is my type of stuff. Right. I think one of the things about this group of folks or this project in general is even though we haven't met each other in person, a lot of us, it's like, oh, good. Finally, I'm in a project where everyone can paint with a diversity of style that makes me comfortable, right? It feels like you can, like, if you have an idea that would be a genre crossing idea that would work, you don't have to lobby it with the people or judge it. You can just be like, yeah, this will work here. Let's do it. That's what I think a lot of that goes into the trust that people are talking about earlier about their thing. I'm like, oh yeah, everyone just says whatever they want. Like, it's wild. You can like have crazy whimsy. You can like be real heavy. You can let the music tell you what to do. You can take bold choices. Everything's cool.
Yeah, it's rare. It's a rare thing to have that freedom, to have that.
Yeah, I think it's nice that we're all conversant with the tech, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to play this game. We'd be too far apart from each other.
Right.
One thing I felt in response to Christian's question about awkward or hard to improvise alone to a single track, knocking them in mode of feedback, other musicians present. I've been a couple times when I've either played something either it's been in another person's studio where I'm laying down a track to do a final for a recording, or even in the studio doing Ergendiado where everything was kind of pre-planned. Yes, from my experience of that, yes, there is more, you could say, emotion, a different kind of emotion there just from the live, human interaction or energy. The energy created a different feeling, but in a way, for me, it's like I vastly prefer writing emails as opposed to a phone call if I want to get my emotion out, because that not energy is too stimulating, but I can't really think of what I want to express. So it's almost just like trying to stay afloat, trying to stay, it's so much is going on, like up here. Whereas if I'm separated in a way, I can just fully tune into what's going on here, and whether it be putting it out in paper or just having my instrument here in the studio, I know there's no time constraints. No one's expecting me to get something in a certain way, not even thinking like, is this person going to like this? Not that I do anyway. But it allows me to really listen to the other instruments in the rough mix, in the mix, and just feel like what emotion is coming from that. And even then sometimes taking an hour to think of like the problem solving, thinking of, okay, what's sliding up here fit well with what they're doing here, and then keep thinking of dynamic range, having things grow, feeling melodically, whatever. And I notice when I'm in an in-person event with other people, sure, it's tons of fun for a stage setting, just the audience and whatnot, but for the actual emotional richness of what I'm playing, it's greatly diminished, I find.
Yeah, man. I just listening to everyone talk today, it's occurred to me that like one of the benefits of people being able to do this almost exclusively, like there's been, it seems like as I'm realizing, like almost nobody was like, oh, you better do this today. Can you just do this? Like some people had to do it on that schedule, but it doesn't seem like anyone had to do it on a schedule that wasn't the best schedule that worked most closely with their process and comfort level. Like the fact that we're all alone actually increased everyone's ability to like either improvise if that was what was comfortable for them live, or like really work that one part out just for that one part because that's what they wanted to do. Like it really felt like everyone got their full expression because they got to do it their own way with the least amount of restrictions technologically, contemporaneously, logistically, whatever.
Yeah, what do
At
I
least, I mean, yeah, right. Everyone's nodding when I say that. So I'm like, I feel like that's what everyone was saying. This might be why this record is so good. Anyway, that's all I have to say about
definitely.
it. Learn to use microphones and compressors, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, I
We're
still need to
living
learn
proof.
compressors.
I've got a funny non sequitur that
Yeah.
does somehow relate. The first track you sent me was Tubular Bells. Speaking of weird
Oh,
tracks,
snap.
the theme to The Exorcist, which
Yeah, it's so
as the first
long.
song is like, oh, there's nothing weird about that at all. It only seems weird now, reflecting on it after getting all the other songs. Like, oh wow, we did start with the Exorcist theme, didn't we? Wow, and then we went to all this very heavy English Isles stuff, you know. But what it got me thinking, and I was pinging you about this a little bit even as I was playing it, because I do think, because it was October, November, so I was practicing for my Christmas set, because I do a bunch of Christmas concerts on the glasses every
Yeah, I'll bet.
and so I was like, God, this song this could be Tubular Bells could be a Christmas song if you just kind of view it from a different lens, you know, like
Christmas album.
right? Yeah. And so, but then it kind of got me into this kind of world of like, oh, so first off, number one, I incorporated it fully into my Christmas set, right? So now the Exorcist theme is right there along with Deck the Halls, you know, and everything else. But also
Nice.
I even rabbit holed a little further and started in on, I've got now the Exorcist theme, the theme from Poltergeist, Nightmare on Elm Street, which is a beautiful theme that we probably, if you grew up in the 80s, you totally know when you hear it, although I didn't until I like listened to it. Oh my God, I know this song front and back. And what else? Anyhow, and I subvertively put them into my set when nobody, like when I'm playing, but like nobody's really paying attention. I can just boom, switch out to the Poltergeist theme, or you know, the Exorcist theme always gets a ton of mileage. So anyhow, and that's all this whole fun, me just messing with people a little bit sonically over the holidays came from this project. So that's pretty fun.
You'll just have to add the music from Die Hard, and then you'll have a true Christmas set.
There we go.
True Christmas set.
Exactly.
Die Hard is a Christmas film.
Oh yeah. Big guy. Let's see. Anything else? It feels like it.
It's coming up on 9 o'clock. I kind of like probably should get to work.
Yeah, I have other
Neat.
things to do here. It's 12,
Oh, right.
almost
yes.
1 o'clock here too. I still have a day of work ahead of me. So,
Well, that.
I got
well,
that.
it
Are
was
there any
it was
more
an absolute.
questions to be addressed?
I think we got everything. Ladies and gentlemen, we are looking to get this thing up and such. So if you happen to have connections, someone might know someone at NPR, possibly, maybe. Grant funding, we're looking for grants. We're looking for any kind of support, patrons of the arts. So if anyone listening knows people
Oh.
and would like this groovy music, please tell them about us.
I'll mention this right here. Far West Folk Conference in October is I'm doing some work for them or something, but their submission process is open, and we might think about it as Waves of Harmony. I think it's down here in Los Angeles in October. I'll send you guys a link on the email and see if we want to try and get a little live set. It's a showcase thing, essentially. You know, I don't know if we're necessarily going to do it, but I thought I'd put that bee in your bonnet because we were talking about renting a theater down here that I work at called the Grand Annex in San Pedro. And it's about 150 seat max. We might be able to do 100 seat butts in seats there if we do play our cards right, and then we could get some numbers to give people. We've been sort of cooking that up as a thing. So if you want to be part of the live band, we're trying to get the band together, guys.
One more job.
October and early next year.
We're going to be there anyway for the recording some more music videos.
That's right. That's
Possibly.
maybe we'll
Oh.
coordinate the time.
And Kyle, I'll be in America probably this year and next year as well. So I could probably come on by and do some stuff.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Nice.
Let's stay.
just-
Let's.
Yeah, just if you put up lodging, we'll have no problem coming.
Yes, please. Let me know dates and things so I can get it scheduled away.
Yes. All right. Take care, guys. Blessings.
See you,
All right,
everyone.
take
Thank
care,
you,
guys.
Sean. Thank you,
Thank you,
Doug.
everybody.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Edwin. Thank you, Joel. Thank you,
It was a
everybody. Thank you all for
pleasure hanging out,
tuning in.
everyone.
Thank you, Austin. Thank you for listening. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Smash and subscribe, as the kids say.
Smash, like, and subscribe. What is my favorite web commercial? Goes like this. It's there. Click it. Click the button. I don't know if it's
Hit
actually
like.
there. Right. It's right there. Okay.
Good night, you all.
Yeah, maybe it's there.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm
everybody.
really glad we did this.
Yeah, super
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. Thank you. Cheers.
I have a great feeling about this.
All right.
I had a great feeling about this.
Adios.